Hello and welcome to Cinema Spotlight with Jake and Reuben. I'm Jake.
I'm Reuben, and this is your regular roundup of all of the films and re-releases hitting screens this week.
This week we look at The Last Showgirl, starring Pamela Anderson in a powerhouse reflective performance about an aging showgirl in Las Vegas.
And we also break down everything that happened at the Oscars. The winners, the losers, the controversy. And Jake has finally seen Emilia Perez and The Substance, so we'll be having a good natter about those too.
And a call out to all up-and-coming filmmakers out there. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see your work. If you want to be interviewed on Cinema Spotlight, please email us at cinemaspotlightjakeandreuben@gmail.com.
And of course, do make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and following us on Spotify, as we'd hate for you to miss a single moment of Cinema Spotlight goodness. Like, subscribe, comment, tell us everything that we got wrong. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. Now, our only new release this week is the latest film by Gia Coppola. It's called The Last Showgirl, and it stars Pamela Anderson as an aging dancer in Las Vegas, whose show, The Razzle Dazzle, has finally been cancelled after decades. It features a number of outstanding performances, and indeed Pamela Anderson herself was nominated for a Golden Globe, while Jamie Lee Curtis, who co-stars, was nominated at the BAFTAs. Now, off the bat, I'll say that I really enjoyed this film. It's kind of elegiac. I think it looks stunning. It's all shot on kind of dreamlike film. But Jake, tell me, what did you make of this? I know you saw it a couple of weeks ago.
I saw a spotlight screening. It just happened to be on, and I think that was one of our scheduling troubled weeks, but I was like, okay, well, I can't see any of the films we're supposed to see, but I'll fit this one in, and I was so glad I did, because I really did enjoy this film. To me, it bordered on almost being bad. It was very much on the edge, but everything, if it had been pushed too far, it would have gone to a bit absurd, the performances, or if it had been done any less than it did, it would have been too dull, but it just threaded the needle very nicely. I thought it was a really, really neat film. Pamela Anderson was sought out to play the lead role. Quite rightly, the script is almost crafted for her. As I said in my opening, it's a reflection. It really is a mirror image of Pamela Anderson as an actress, as a performer who went from sort of a model and was sort of shot to fame, and then also scandalous fame as well, with her history and all this sort of... It just really was so poetic to see her give such a wonderfully nuanced performance. She is playing a character, yes, but it's a person that you would know, someone that you would experience in real life, someone who has dedicated their life to something and still loves it. It's sort of hard to see someone in their later years. Often you see people in films who are so devastated or sort of jaded, or, you know, the common trope in all these legacy sequels is to have the famous good guy be in a sort of rut. But it's so nice to see, even though this character is struggling, that she still adores what she does. And Pamela Anderson gives an absolutely stellar performance in that angle. She is surrounded by, as you said in your opening, Reuben, really, really great performances. I think Jamie Lee Curtis is electric. I'm glad that she got nominated for a BAFTA. I think this film overall has been greatly snubbed, because you've also got a great supporting male performance in Dave Bautista, who is just so a quiet, gentle giant, and he's just got so heartbreaking. It's absolutely wonderful. I thought everyone was in a perfect place. It was so well cast. That's really what really solidifies this movie. I did have a bit of a worry when I was watching the opening few scenes, because there's a scene where it opens in a grocery store and it's dreadfully out of focus.
I also noticed that. I thought, gosh, is this a stylistic choice we're going for? But I think that is just on that day they had the focus a little bit off. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I think film's expensive. But this is the thing, that was very, very minor, and it's like, well, they could have just avoided using that shot altogether, but the directors have their vision. Maybe it was a stylistic thing in the edit that, oh, okay, we set forth this dreamlike quality. But the rest of the cinematography is quite spectacular. The use of film is really beautiful. It really does use Las Vegas to its fullest potential, I think, because I went to Las Vegas a couple of summers ago, and you really do see every side of it, sort of the glamour, but also the grunge And I think they do a really good job. I think the really warm sense of film as a medium, the way that it captures light, really does capture the intense heat and sort of the aged glory of Las Vegas, where once it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this great spectacle, as was Pamela Anderson's character, and the use of slightly weathered film and the sort of way that the camera moves with the dancers, but in a sort of jilted way, often from behind, looking from behind, as a legacy gone by. But I thought this film was really gentle and deserves more than it's been given, I think. I'm surprised it had no representation at the Oscars, which is what we'll be talking about next. But yes, Reuben, tell me a bit about what you thought.
Yes, so I'm very much on the same page, I would say. I thought that Pamela Anderson gave an absolutely extraordinary performance. I would have loved to have seen a nomination for her at the Oscars. I think Jamie Lee Curtis, similarly, she's so interesting as an actor because she's so good at simultaneously being strong and bolshy, I think, Jamie Lee, but also have this kind of tenderness underneath. But I just completely agree with you about the film as a whole. It has this kind of brilliant visual quality with the grain, as you said, where you get this sense of dirty pretty, it's kind of gritty, it's kind of grimy, but it's also slightly ethereal, it's also kind of glowing. And we get these wonderful kind of repeated motifs of looking up at these iconic sculptures of female figures and female bodies, and we get into this kind of idea and this theme of the way that women in Las Vegas are worshipped and objectified and powerful in their youth, but then later in life, which is where we find Pamela Anderson, all of that is turned on their head, and it's lonely and it's disempowering. And I thought Pamela Anderson played that absolutely beautifully. She tells so much in the way that she dances, I think. There's a lot of very powerful characterization just through her physical movements. I watched this with a professional dancer, and he said that the dancing all the way throughout was really, really well done, very technically accurate. But I was just really impressed by the way that it was really feeding into the story. And it's just the way that she holds herself during conversations too. There's a lovely scene where she and Dave Bautista go to a restaurant, and it's just things like the angle that she's got her head as she's speaking. You start getting insight into this character that you didn't have before. And the dialogue, I think, is really smart. We get drip of show don't tell exposition, I suppose you would call it, about her past and about her life. But I thought it did a really good job of seamlessly integrating that into these kind of sequences. It's really, really good. I'm shocked that it hasn't had more recognition. I wonder if to a certain extent it's a little slight. This is an 89-minute film. I think it probably could have been slightly longer. I'd happily have watched another 15-20 minutes. But it's really beautifully done. And you talked about the direction by Gia Coppola and using Vegas really well. I was interested to kind of do some research on the film and see how a lot of her influences there were from photographers and the way that they're kind of framing Vegas. Because I think so much of the worldview of the film is kind of touristic. It's enthralled to Vegas in the same way as the characters, and it becomes this kind of all-encompassing glamorous prison almost, where they love it but they hate it, and it's good for them and it's terrible for them, and all of those conflicting emotions are kind of bound up in these sweeping visuals, which are sometimes completely dreamlike and sometimes nightmarish. So I was really impressed. And do you know, maybe you can tell me something about the music, because I thought the score in this was really, really interesting. It's at times, I think, kind of synthesized. It reminded me a little bit of Beltrami's work with David Lynch. There's an ethereality to it, which I thought was really interesting. And again, it kind of blurs the line at times between, are we watching something that is a tragedy or is it something closer to horror?
There's a lot about score I'll talk about in this episode because I've got a lot to say. But this film, it's been so overlooked. It is so mesmeric, the score. You almost blend into the whole environment of it. I think the Brutalist is the same. The Brutalist had a kind of bombastic nature. The majority you sort of blend in with the film, and I think that's really worthwhile. And I think this film does a great job because everything favors everything else. Everything supports it. So the cinematography supports the beautiful performances. The beautiful lighting supports the cinematography. The beautiful score supports the beautiful action. And I do think that it's so well married, all of these elements all together. I think at the time when I listened to it, when I watched the film, it just really, I was quite blown away with the score. I thought it was delicate, but also, as you said, the artificiality of it really did lend itself to some of the conflict that was going on in the film. There's a conflict between how people live their lives and what people consider worthwhile, how they spend their lives. As creatives, Reuben, you and I are, we spend a lot of our time worrying and stressing and focusing on things that other people would think was absolute trash. And so I think it really spoke to me on that level, and the score also helped with that. I also loved all the needle drops, the actual soundtrack. There's a beautiful song by Miley Cyrus that shows up at the end,
which should have been Oscar nominated, surely. What an amazing song. Beautiful That Way, it's called. I loved that. It's used phenomenally as well in that closing scene. I think it's no spoiler to say that's where it pops up. I loved that. I was so knocked out by that as a needle drop.
Shocked, disturbed, appalled that it didn't get nominated and probably should have won. It's just perfect use. It's a really well-crafted film, and the fact that using that Miley Cyrus song, someone who comes from this tenure of always being on screen, and yet her voice is so rich and with experience and pain, and then it just tailors itself to this film. Pamela Anderson's history really makes this film more than it is. Even Brenda Song, she grew up on the Disney Channel as well. And so sort of all this stuff of people who seemingly lost their way because the world said no. You don't deserve this chance. You don't deserve to still be adored. Then, this is the film that really just holds a middle finger up to a lot of that. I know that Pamela Anderson often talked about the Pam and Tommy TV series and this film as a response to sort of her own life being once again paraded without her consent. And this film really just puts into context that she is a human being, because the performance is so wire thin to real life. It's still a performance. It's not herself. She's not this character, but the public eye sees this as Pamela Anderson, sees the lead role as just completely absorbed in. I'm really grateful that she was given this opportunity. I heard a story that Gia Coppola wanted to send it to her, but her agent rejected it in under half an hour, and eventually through her son that the script got to her. And then she immediately said yes, quite rightly. Go see it. It's out. It's not been given the recognition it deserves. Go see it. Every facet of it is brilliant, apart from that one shot that's really out of focus. But get over that, because it only lasts a couple of seconds. But yes, no, I think it. All these things, they just come together to create a really perfect movie. I personally didn't think it needed to be longer. I thought, yes, you've given us this neat package. I got everything. It's a real nice test. I don't want to learn more. I don't want to learn less. I think it was so nicely put. And so, yeah, I really, really rate it.
On Sunday night, it was the 97th Academy Awards, which saw a whole host of surprises go down, not least of all Sean Baker winning 4 awards himself. That's more than anyone else ever has for the one film, and Honora stealing Best Picture. Now, Jake and I thought that it would be good fun if we went through the list of films nominated for Best Picture and gave them our own personal ranking. So Jake, as far as you're concerned, what's in number 10 in this position? What's the worst film on this list?
Emilia Perez. Terrible. We'll get into it a bit more later, but yes, absolute dead last for me. It was a bit of the next one's a bit more of a toss-up, but yes, I watched or finished watching Emilia Perez last night, and I was shocked how it got 13 nominations. There's been a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of negativity towards this film. I feel my negativity is in a different place, but yes, dead last for me. Reuben, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement, actually. Emilia Perez is in 10th place for me. I think that it has good bits. I think it's broadly well made, but it's got some huge narrative issues, and my goodness, its politics, I don't agree with them. So, Jake, tell me then, what was your number 9 on the list of Best Picture nominees?
My number 9 is going to upset our producer, upset you. It's going to upset all those Catholics out there. Conclave is my number 9. I was tossing this up between my number 8 position. I was like, I just really didn't like it. And the more I think about it, the more people tell me I'm wrong, I just hate it more and more. I just have it has lots of good things going for it, but I think the main problem is I do not care for the story. I don't really care for the characters, and therefore I don't care really what they're doing either. Sort of the Catholic Church is what it is. Um, but oh well. I'm so sorry, world. You can hate me. I'm sorry, BAFTA. I'm sorry, Ray Fiennes. I'm sorry. It's my number 9. I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay.
Okay, well, you'll be shocked to hear that I do not agree with you. I think Conclave is a very good film, and it certainly is going to be higher on the list for me. My number 9 is a film which I thought was completely and utterly okay. It's so unbelievably mediocre that it barely exists. It's Timothy Chalamet in his Please Give Me an Oscar performance as Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. I think this film is so unbelievably okay that it's boring. It's not even that interesting to talk about because it's fine. He's not great. The film is well made. James Mangold is a very good director. It's Oscar bait and it's boring.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that I follow your ranking with number 8, A Complete Unknown. The only way it sort of clinched above Conclave for me was that I like Bob Dylan's music, and it was sang. And sang well? No. Played well? Well, the production was okay. The rest of the film, as Reuben said, is very by the numbers, very bland. Yeah, the best thing that came from it is that I'm listening to more Bob Dylan, the real Bob Dylan, and that is great. So listen to Bob Dylan.
I feel like that's a win. I actually think that the filmmakers would be quite pleased with that review because I agree, it made me want to listen to some Bob Dylan. But yeah, it's a complete nothing in my opinion. A complete nothing, not a complete unknown.
Yes, Reuben, you're right. A complete nothing. But I'm going to ask you, what's in your number 8 spot?
So I think for me, this is where it starts getting tricky because I start to really, really like the film. So I think in number 8, it's Wicked. Because I loved this film. I thought it was completely joyous. I thought it was... Actually, no, I'm not. It's not Wicked. It's Conclave. It's Conclave. Number 8 is Conclave. Conclave is good. Conclave is really well made. Excellent direction by Edward Berger. Really, really good writing by Peter Strawn. I'm delighted he won Best Adapted Screenplay. It's just on a different level from the others to me. It's really good. It's a 4-star film. I think it's brilliantly written. It doesn't have the special magic that it takes to get into the top 7, is what I'd say. So at number 8 for me, it's Conclave.
At number 7 is The Brutalist for me. This is the thing. When I was thinking about the ranking before we did our Oscars review itself, is that, well, when I think about it more and more, I'm like, I loved it in the moment. Then when I sit with it, I'm like, that went on for a long time, and there were much more films, many films on this list that I enjoyed much, much more. I think there are stellar performances, especially by Adrian Brody. I think the score, which won the Oscar, is definitely great, one of the best on this list. But something was off, when I was thinking about it. It's kind of like, would I sit and watch it again? No, I don't think I would. I think I got what I could get from it, I think, when I watched it the first time, and it's a very interesting experience. But, there were some films that really broke through and really tickled my fancy. And so, yes, sadly, The Brutalist, even though we raved about it in our review, is lower in the list than it probably should be. So sorry, everyone. Don't spit your gum at me.
That's an absolute scandal, Jake. I can't believe you're putting The Brutalist at number 7. For me, the number 7 slot, and I really, really like this film, I think is Anora. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I think Mikey Madison's terrific in that role. I think Sean Baker is a great director. I like his work. But it didn't emotionally connect with me in the way that the other films on this list did. So for that reason, I'm putting it at number 7.
So now we get to number 6. What a good number. This one's interesting because I'm surprised this film got nominated. I am not surprised it didn't win because sci-fi often gets overlooked these days. You know, we had that great era where Mad Max Fury Road was nominated and Shape of Water and all this sort of stuff. It felt like this, but it never had a chance amongst these other titans. But Dune Part 2 is my number 6. Because I really like the first Dune, and I also like the David Lynch Dune, to be honest. That's a controversial opinion.
That is a controversial take.
But yeah, so I really like Part 1. I think Part 1 layered a lot of what is good in Part 2. I actually think Part 2 is a bit of a step down, but no one on this planet agrees with me, so...
Yeah, you're wrong. That's why. That's an insane take. Part 2 is a masterpiece.
I think Part 2 is very good. I think that what I really like about Part 1 is sort of a bit more of the traversing the worlds. I prefer the way the music's used, the score, but the score is both good. You should listen to it as one whole. But I really love the score pieces, the alien bagpipes for the sort of space Celtics. I love that piece of music. That's not the name. Sorry, Hans Zimmer. That's not the name of your music.
Hans is grinding his knuckles in fury.
He's got enough money and enough Oscars. Whatever. But, you know, what I really did like about Part 2 is just Austin Butler's performance alone was really riveting. I thought his sort of dispatching and the conclusion of the film didn't really play up to the sort of great way he's introduced, great way they sort of showcase his character through the film. And I think there's some great choices, and it's just a great ensemble cast. Rebecca Ferguson is always amazing and continues to be. Florence Pugh shows up, and that always makes us smile because she's stellar in everything she does, even if she's only there for 5 minutes. So sorry, Dune Part 2, you are good, but you are only my number 6.
I can't believe that you would put Dune at number 6. I think it's a modern sci-fi masterpiece. But to be honest, I feel bad for my number 6 because my number 6 is Nickel Boys, a film which I think is practically perfect, completely beautiful, really, really emotional, and it's an unbelievably bold piece of filmmaking, you know, literally advancing the way that we think about cinema and what it can do. So much of it is shot using this point of view technique that I thought was really powerful. It really grounds you in the characters' feelings and in their experiences because you're literally viewing the world through their eyes, and I thought it was unbelievably brilliant. But I like it less than the other 5 things on this list, so it's at number 6. So what cracks your top 5, Jake? What's so good that it can put Dune at number 6?
Okay, so you just talked about Nickel Boys, but that is my number 5. I really enjoyed the film. I don't know why it hasn't been talked about more. I don't know why it's got its Best Picture nomination, but then stumm. Absolutely nothing. Really, you know, barely a trailer. I've seen 2, and I've seen the film, you know, maybe 2 trailers once. Maybe once I saw the Nickel Boys trailer. No one's talking about it. It's such a great film. And I do love the way that the filmmaking is different. I like that it's pushing it. I like that it's exposing this story that needs to be told. I just think the central performances are stellar. I was just fully immersed in it. I love the sound design. I love the random shots of space and sky. I love it. To all around, as I said, it's a nice piece of poetry and nice piece of historical fiction, and you know, telling an inspired story of something that was truly horrific, but doing it in a way that can connect to people who are so disconnected from it. I felt incredibly connected to the struggles of these characters. I think, you know, there are films, the 4 above this, I loved much more. But Nickel Boys itself, it deserves more than it's been given. It really is a true piece of filmmaking, and you know, the creators will go far. And I just, people, go see it, go watch it, please. What's your number 5?
I think, and again, it pains me to say it, I think that this is Wicked because I completely loved that film. Made me cry a lot, made me feel inspired, made me laugh. I think Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are unbelievably great. I wish they'd had more of a shot in this award season because they really deserve it. The songs are magnificent. The staging, the set design is extraordinary. It is geniusly directed by John M. Chu, and it almost gets all stolen away by Jonathan Bailey being the most charming man in human history. So I adore Wicked. It was the Christmas feel-good hit of this winter, but it's at number 5 for me. With that being said, we move into the really big leagues, and it's, for me, a hair's breadth between all of these films. What's your number 4 on this list of Best Picture nominees, Jake?
See, we're sort of tailing each other, because my number 4 is Wicked. I loved Wicked. I thought, well, you and I got to see it together, Reuben.
We did.
No, I really enjoyed it. I think Ariana Grande was snubbed. I think, she wasn't snubbed. She got the nomination, but I think she was. It was stolen from her. She didn't get much of a look in, but was truly spectacular. I think comedy is so overlooked in these categories. Comedy and horror, so overlooked. We've had some representation of it, but no real success stories this Oscar season. I really enjoyed it. The musical, it means something to my family. I really enjoyed it. I think the way it was done, as much as I have some problems with the film, I went away feeling that, wow, they did such a great job with such a difficult musical to pull off, and they really did pull it off. So, that's why it's number 4. I'm thinking, when I looked back through this list, when I look back at all these films that I watched, which ones really engaged me, which ones did I enjoy in any sense of the term enjoy, and yes, Wicked, number 4. But what's your number 4, Reuben?
My number 4 is a brilliant Brazilian film. It's I'm Still Here. We talked about it last week. It's an astonishing piece of work. It's so powerful. I cried a lot. You'll notice a theme here. It is an important story. It is brilliantly well told. And it features an amazing performance by Fernanda Torres. I think she'd have been a very, very worthy Best Actress winner at the Oscars last weekend. I think it's genuinely one of the best films of the year. The Academy didn't get this wrong. And it's honestly, I think, a film that is going to stand the test of time too. Not least because it is doing a really good job of grappling with a subject matter that's really sensitive and easy to get wrong, I think. So I'm Still Here is my number 4 pick.
And my number 3 is I'm Still Here.
We're so in sync.
I know, we're in sync. We really are in sync. I really love the film. I think Fernanda Torres was excellent. I do agree that Mikey Madison deserved to win, but it was a very razor thin between Fernanda Torres and Mikey Madison. I think no one else really had a shoe-in compared to those two. I would have been happy either way. I'm so glad that it won Best International Film. Yeah, it's a stellar film. Reuben's right, it deals with such a harsh topic. I recommended it to my mum. That's one of the big things we say on this show. I recommended it to my mum. I said, this film is for you, Mum. You're going to love it. It's historical. It's got great performances. She'll probably cry. She'll love it. That's a badge of true honor for a film to be worthy of my mother's viewership. Yeah, absolutely stellar. I'm so glad it had this resurgence. That sort of what Nickel Boys missed out on. What they... sort of the alternate effect is happening, I'm Still Here is getting the recognition it deserves. It really is brilliant. Go see the film. So, Reuben, what is your number 3?
All of these films are nailed-on masterpieces, in my opinion. At number 3, it's Dune Part 2. You put this way down the list because you're insane. This is genuinely a masterpiece. I think it's Denis Villeneuve's best film. It is brain-melting in its imagination. It is a realization of sci-fi unlike anything you've ever seen before. And it takes the characters and it takes the worlds and the storylines and the themes of the first film, and it turns them into something even more colossal. It is epic in every sense of the word, and it looks like $1 billion. It looks extraordinary. It's shot by Greg Fraser, probably the best cinematographer, aside from Roger Deakins working today. I just adored it. I felt like I was watching Lawrence of Arabia. I felt like I was watching a true kind of wartime epic, but if it was set on a desert planet with sandworms and Timothée Chalamet giving a genuinely inspired performance as someone who is rising into this kind of terrible, fateful hero / villain role that they're terrified of, but they can't escape from. I genuinely adored it. It's Shakespearean at times. It features an amazing turn by Rebecca Ferguson, and it has the great excitement of ending perfectly in its own right, but also in a way that teases a follow-up, June Messiah, which we know is in the works. I cannot wait for part 3. I think it's genuinely, if part 3 is as good as 1 and 2 have been, this is a movie trilogy for the ages.
Now we're on our final 2. So this was late viewership for me, which is very, very... both were, actually. Both of the last films in my list were late viewership, and I'm ashamed that I didn't catch them when they first both came out. But I was able to see both these films in the cinema. But my number 2, anyone who knows me will completely understand why I love this film. But The Substance, what a movie. What a movie. My second best of this roster. It is goofy as hell, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was like Stuart Gordon movies of old, Reanimator, From Beyond, things that I truly, truly love. Just absolutely barbarically insane, and yet has great social commentary. But it doesn't take itself too seriously. It has an absolutely ridiculous ending akin to Stephen King, I'll say. People who've seen it will probably understand. You know, the sort of visual, you know, it's almost obvious in its slight parody. It's obvious in its references. There's references to The Shining very obviously, in its carpet and its use of fake blood. I truly, truly loved it. I loved the strange creature design, and you know, I loved the just everything. It was just goofy. I thought it was a great example of film excess on film, and also ended brilliantly. Someone in the cinema went, "Good God," when it was over, and I was like, okay, that wasn't for them, but for me, absolutely 1000% yes. Love it. That's my number 2. Great film. Didn't get much award, but because it won't, because it's just a crazy horror movie, and you know, people don't respect it, but I'm glad it was nominated in this list, because it is both simultaneously the most expensive, cheapest film I've ever seen, because it has that beautiful quality that I love in classic 80s and 70s horror movies, where, you know, everyone's trying their best, but it kind of still looks a bit naff. But it also looks brilliantly. It also looks brilliant at the same time. I think, what a great line. It just reminds me of all those great films. Basket Case is another series it reminds me of. I just love all these references to all this crap that only I've seen. I love it. Great film. Absolutely amazing. Love it. Go see it. Go see it and be disgusted. Absolutely. So, Reuben, what's your number 2? Your Virgil Tracy, what's your number 2?
Well, I'm joining on the love-in for The Substance. I completely adored this film, but I have to say I'm not sure I'll ever watch it again. So upsetting did I find it. I can't remember the last time that a film just sort of seized me by the throat and sort of pinned me down like this movie does. It is not subtle. You're absolutely right. It wields social commentary like a claw hammer, but it's genuinely an astonishing piece of work. Coralie Farjat is a visionary filmmaker as far as I'm concerned. I think she's a genius. I think Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley are both truly astonishing in their roles. I think I'm saying the word astonishing too many times, but I can't understate how much I love this film. It's Dorian Gray if it was suffused with the elixir of Jekyll and Hyde. It's genius. It's horrible. The prosthetics are disturbing in the extreme, and it wields, as I say, this kind of horribly hilarious at times social commentary brilliantly that tips into tragedy so expertly. It has this sweeping opera that is unlike anything that you'll see this year, next year, or perhaps ever again. It's surely an instant classic, one for the books, and I really, really can't wait to see what Coralie Farjat makes next, because if it's anything like this, it will be mind-blowing. And so, Jake, we finally come to number 1. What is, in your opinion, the best pick of the Best Picture nominees of this year?
Well, I'm afraid to be boring, but the Academy got it right. The best film for me is Anora. I think how much I loved this film whilst watching it in the cinema was more than any of these other films. Absolutely. I truly did adore the substance. I truly adored a lot of these films. Not Emilia Perez. But Anora is absolutely stellar. It's so well made. It's so well edited. I'm not sure if we talked about that in our review. And, you know, Sean Baker deserved to win that award too because it's seamless. It's just perfect. It's perfect for me. It's such an interesting collection of little sort of, well, the through line of the film is so interesting, as I said in our review, and I'll try not to repeat myself too much, but it's like two films stitched together, and I love that aspect of it. I love how unique it is. I love all the performances. You know, it's absolutely stellar. It deserved the rapturous support from the Academy. I'm so glad that it swept the Oscars. If anything deserved it, it was the underdog, an underdog for independent film, an underdog for a clear creative vision, not really polluted by production houses who think they know better. I think, and it deserves, you know, young, youthful, and exciting performances. It's just a great beacon for the future as well for a filmmaker. It really is, and I adored it. I'm so glad it won. It's my number one of the Oscars season. Now, Reuben, I know people who have been keeping a close eye to our lists, even though we've been talking in random tangents, as we often do, can probably guess what your number one is, but let's hear you talk about it. What is your number one?
My best picture for this year is Luca Guadagnino's Challenges. No, sadly, insanely, it wasn't nominated despite being genuinely a masterpiece. But in the number one spot, we have another masterpiece, and that was nominated, so it's okay. We have Brady Corbet's The Brutalist. What an astonishing film. The poster says monumental 5 times, and rightly so. This is an absolutely astonishing film. I can't believe that it exists, and I especially can't believe that it exists on a budget of $11 million. I said it in our review at the time. It is a miracle that film exists, and I will say it again. What Brady Corbet manages to do on a tiny budget is more than most filmmakers can ever dream to accomplish in their lifetimes. It is a masterpiece. It features astonishing performances by Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, many, many more. Guy Pearce is brilliant in it. It is moving, it is thought-provoking, and it tells its story in this very unconventional way across, yes, a long runtime, but in a way that keeps you completely wrapped. And frankly, I'm all for the reintroduction of intermissions in films on the basis of this, because it was so great to have a little break halfway through, go and get some coffee, and talk to all of the other cinema goers and, you know, connect with them and get their thoughts on the film. So I think this is, like Anora, another really, really important step for Hollywood. It's a small budget film that creates very, very, very big stories, and that's exactly where I think it needs to go. It's a miracle, and I love it. Number one is The Brutalist. Well, Jake, I'm absolutely outraged that you put Dune Part 2 so far down that list. But one area where we agree is that Emilia Perez is the worst film nominated for Best Picture this year. And indeed, I think it's fair to say, one of the worst films of the year. Now, this has been swathed in controversy, as I'm sure we'll get into. But tell me, why did you not like Emilia Perez?
Well, we talk about the Oscars. That's what we're talking about, right? So, what won the best song? Emilia Perez. I don't think Emilia Perez has any songs in it. We have a controversial opinion. A lot of people have negative things to say about this film. You can say that the story is telenovela levels of outrageous. It seems like an idea a writer would have after smoking too much weed or drinking too much. It seems like, oh, what happens if a cartel person wanted to escape their life and have a sex change, but then actually it's this meditation on transgenderism, but also this meditation on human worth, or what is goodness in humans, and then they just absolutely botch it, every single thing they do. It's interesting, but it just seems like, oh, let's cram everything in, let's tell too many stories all at once. I feel that this film is just tragically bad, absolutely terribly bad, but in many different ways that people aren't talking about. So I'm going to get into Jake talks about how bad the music in Emilia Perez really is. Now, a lot of people are talking about that one song where man to woman, woman to man, penis to vagina. Now, that's deliberately comedic. People should get over that one, and they should turn to look at the actual serious music, which is pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. Why is this film a musical? Well, I'd get it if you actually had an idea for the music, what the music really meant. What are the songs going to be well crafted? Are the lyrics going to be well crafted? No, no, no. There is a song in this that has a doctor going, "Lady, I've been a doctor for many years, and I want to, she's always gonna be a man, da-da-da-da-da, doctor, I know you've done a lot of studies." It's just ridiculously bad. Oh my gosh, yes, okay, lyrics, whatever. I've written some awful lyrics in my time. I can't, I'm not no point of authority. But the reason for making a musical is several fold. You love musicals, you loved Wicked, I loved Wicked, but Wicked has a great story and has great music to back it up. If you want to be a musical, you have to earn it by working on the music and lyrics. A lot of the songs sung in this are sung with this weird half-arsed approach. It's very raspy. It's half acting, half singing, and it does not work because the auto-tune is working double time to try and get people to sound in tune. That one scene with the doctor is an audio abomination. I cannot stand it. Then there's a song where someone's crying about their papa, but it's sort of, the lyrics are interesting, but it's coming from a 6-year-old and they're saying something like, "He smelled like rain after a dark storm." You know, it's far too poetic. It doesn't quite work. It doesn't work at all. And then, oh my gosh, the love song. There is a crammed in love story to create this idea that Emilia Perez is becoming a better person, finding love again. And all they do is sing each other's names. Emilia, Emilia. I can't pronounce. Epifania, Epifania. Sorry, that's my Nosferatu impression again. Epifania. It's terrible. It's terrible. It doesn't work because the music is not good. It is not good. The production's all over the place. The singing sounds like, the Chipmunks. The way that Alvin and the Chipmunks sound. It's just in your ears. It just doesn't work. It bores into my soul. It's terrible. It's so bad. It's just audio nightmare. I cannot believe that it won best. It is the best song in the film that won the best original song.
I have to say, I actually think that sequence is really good. It's I think where the film has it's suddenly a moment of interest, because I think it has quite a pedestrian start and a very, very bad end. But I think the middle is quite interesting because suddenly it looks like, oh wow, this is going to be a film about morality and corruption. And, there's this whole sequence where they're talking about all of these, lives that have been ripped apart because all of the authority figures are in the hand of the mob. And actually, the film immediately abandons that idea pretty much after this scene, but it is well done with Zoe Saldana in a sort of a scarlet tuxedo, velvet tuxedo, dancing around these tables in the dark, exposing all of this, duplicity. Like, I thought that was the best sequence in the film, I have to say. And the song, I think, works for me within the context of that scene.
Now, this is the thing, you are correct. It is the best sequence in the movie, and it does have, Zoe Saldana is very good in it. None of this music is very melodic, and when it is, it doesn't have very, it's not quotable melodies. I cannot sing, the only song I can sing you is the terrible ones, because they're hilariously bad. It's childlike, the way the melodies are written, but it's not supposed to be. It's like the song actually sung by a child is too complex, and the song sung by adults is, and you could say, oh, there's definitely some kind of, purpose to this. There isn't. It just really feels like it's very rushed. And, El Mal that won the Oscar, this great sequence, also not very melodic, but it finally becomes a musical, and you're like, oh, now it's actually going to trust in its own format, which it's failed to done throughout the whole of the original. There's just snippets, and it's a bit like Chicago. It's a bit like, oh, they're only seeing these musical numbers in their mind, but if you're going to do that, then fully commit to the musical numbers, because when it actually works, in the one scene that won Zoe Saldana, that ripped it from Ariana Grande's hands, in my opinion, but gave it to her because it's a good sequence and she is very good in it. Her performance, her choreography is very good, but that's the one real show of actual cinema and musical theatre coming together to create something that works. It doesn't work anywhere else, so don't make your film a musical because it just makes it goofy. It's like, and there are good goofy films like The Substance that really, utilize its goofiness for the best possibilities that it can achieve from that. But this film doesn't believe it's goofy, but it absolutely is. It's just, it doesn't add anything. The reason people burst into song is because they are so impassioned to do so that they break the laws of reality as we know it to sort of become this non-diegetic music and start singing. And I didn't get any point why anyone sang. It slowed down the film, already a long film, all these musical numbers. The only one that worked was the one that won the Oscar, and to be honest, it's not even that well written. There's no melody. It's a lot of this music throughout the film is rhythmic speaking, and, well, fine, but that's not a musical. It definitely shouldn't have won the Golden Globe for Best Musical. Wicked, far better. I know those songs have existed for a very long time now, but far, far better. This film is just bad. It tries to use musical to add character development to characters that they've lazily not developed enough or have created daft development for. Emilia Perez is not a good character. Zoe Saldana's character is not good. Emilia Perez's wife, Selena Gomez, my gosh, she's a recording artist, and it sounds like she's, powered by the auto-tune machine as well. And it's just all terrible. That character is ludicrously badly written.
I couldn't agree more, I have to say. I can't believe that the ending of Emilia Perez relies on her character out of nowhere suddenly becoming completely insane. There is a third act twist, which I think I can sort of spoil it a bit. It's been out for so long. She literally abducts Emilia and they start cutting off her fingers because they want to what? Like, where has this come from? I didn't believe it for a moment. But I mean, I thought that her vocal performance was decent. Jake does not agree, dear viewer. Jake does not agree.
I respect Reuben greatly, and I respect our producer who quite likes this film. But to me, I just don't understand. It actually made me quite miserable watching it. Not in the right way that it was trying to. It was just a misery to watch, especially when I watched The Substance just before it. Actually, I tell a lie. I sort of paused Emilia Perez halfway through. I watched it before. I went to go see The Substance, and I watched the rest after. And I was like, "What a terrible sandwich! 2 moldy pieces of bread with this beautiful filling." So it's just absolutely tragedy that it got the most nominations of any film. I don't understand why. The lighting's good. That's about it. Zoe Saldana's pretty okay, but I think there are better performances. Compare this song to Billie Eilish's that won last year, one of, if not one of the greatest modern pop songs written, and one of the most devastating pieces of music. And even No Time to Die, which she wrote, is a much better song. Billie Eilish deserves 2 Oscars, and this trash. And I hate to trash fellow musicians, but it feels very like they had very little time to write an entire musical, and that's why all the songs are less than a minute long, and that all the songs have no lasting power. And the only reason the one won the Oscar is because the choreography was so good. Where's the choreography Oscar? Come on, that deserved it. That was good, but everything else, God, this film deserves the hate. I mean, people are hating it in the wrong way, hated it in the fact that it's really badly made. It's not a good film. It's not well directed. All the performances are fine, but my God, get it away from... I wish I was in the boot of that car, because it crashes and it explodes and she dies. There you are, spoilers. Now you don't have to watch it. It's crap. It's bad. God, get it away from me. This is awful. We would hate to have a queer love story not end with one of them being horribly killed, wouldn't we? Yeah, no, I mean, I do agree with you overall. I mean, I don't like this film. I thought I was going to, be blown away by its badness. And actually, I think that the production side of it is pretty solid. I do think, it's nicely designed. I think it's nicely shot. I think the performances are broadly good. I actually think that the lead performance by Carla Sofia Gascon is very good. It's a shame that she has the worst opinions in the world, because I think she was actually very strong in the film. But yeah, I mean,
it's fascinating to see the way that this looked a couple of months ago like such a dead cert for the Oscars, and it got so many nominations, and yet it has come out of this in very poor shape, really. I think it won original song and it won supporting actress for Zoe Saldana, who, to be fair, is good in the film, but her character gets forgotten 2/3 of the way through, along with all of the kind of interesting plot threads. I'm not the person to talk about its politics when it comes to representation of transgender lives, but suffice to say, I was not impressed. It certainly does seem to have this huge attitude of not really being very interested in telling a story about a transgender woman while also telling a story about a transgender woman. So it's not good representation. It's not well handled. It's not thoughtfully done. I think the whole film is really fighting against itself because it's so ill-conceived to tell the story that it is telling. So, Emilia Perez, it's not a good film. It is shocking to me that it was nominated for Best Picture. I am relieved that it didn't win more Oscars, because I think if this had come away with a host of gongs, that would have been very, very depressing. So I was actually really delighted to see that The Substance didn't go home empty-handed. I really, really was rooting for Demi Moore in the Best Actress category, but alas, it was not to be. And I don't begrudge Mikey Madison, because she is magnificent in Anora. But The Substance did win Best Hair and Makeup, and I think that's so well deserved, because that film is all about the prosthetics. It's all about the oozing cuts that we see on bodies. It's all about the sort of necrotizing flesh that Demi Moore's character has on her finger at one point. It's all about the transformation into Monstro Elisasu that we have at the end of the film. It's gloriously, gloriously done, and hats off to the prosthetics team and the makeup team for making all of that simultaneously really realistic, really believable, but for the kind of more nightmarish elements, really pushing it into a sort of plastic, fantastic, absurdist territory in a way that I just thought was genuinely and delightfully demented. And it's really subtle as well, that's the kind of the big headline grabbing stuff. But I know they did a huge amount of work on, for example, Margaret Qualley for the nude scenes, on like creating the perfect body, this kind of male gazy ideal of what a woman should look like. They do such a good job all throughout the film of creating these characters who look and feel real. And that is actually what the story is about, because it's a sort of sequel to The Fly, this movie. So yeah, glorious, glorious work by the hair and makeups team. I was really, really impressed. And hearty congratulations to them. What were your highlights of this year's awards ceremony, Jake?
Well, we have discussed a lot of what we thought. I thought Mikey Madison personally was the best choice. She is going to go far, but I've talked extensively about her. I was really glad Kieran Culkin won. He was the shoo-in for supporting. He's won almost everything, but he gave the best speech. I had a bit of a chuckle. It wasn't too long.
Adrian Brody, we're looking at you.
Yes, but I just thought it was deservedly so. I just read that Jesse Eisenberg's been given Polish citizenship now because of how well the film's done and how well it sort of represents Polish culture and American Polish culture as well. I think that's really neat. It's a film I still really love. I'm so glad it got the awards that it did. And Kieran Culkin is top, absolutely top. What a great performance. And also, Alex isn't here, but our amazing guest host last episode, I'm sure, would be very happy to hear that I'm Still Here won Best International Film, which absolutely deserved, because people thought it would be that pile of crap Emilia Perez, but no, it was actually a great, great film that will stand the test of time, with a brilliant performance and just brilliantly done all the way through. Brilliant use of music, brilliant use. Very subtle, but those are my highlights. I thought Conan O'Brien was pretty good. Usually they can be quite drab. Oscars are all very pomp and circumstances, very flamboyant. But, I was quite pleased with the Anora sweep. I know other people like yourself, Reuben, weren't so hot on it, but yeah.
It's okay. I mean, I really like Honora. You know, as people who've heard our review of it last week, I was a big fan of that film. I think for me, it was just the case that there were always one or two films that I would have preferred to win over it. You know, it was sort of my third choice in most of those categories. But listen, I love Sean Baker. I really, really like the film. I'm so delighted for him to get this recognition. I think he's such a visionary and such a lovely man as well, by all accounts. So, no, I'm really delighted that Honora has done so well. I wish that we'd got a little bit more in there for The Substance, because I just can't believe it's real, honestly. I just think it's such a masterpiece. And Demi Moore, whatever she goes on to do next, I hope that she knows that she was absolutely astonishing in that film and would have been a completely worthy Best Actress winner, because she is really brilliant. So it was good. I quite enjoyed the clips of the ceremony that I watched. I sadly had to wake up super early the day after the Oscars, so I wasn't able to watch the whole thing. But it looked like good fun. There was a random James Bond tribute that was kind of okay, with Margaret Qualley doing some dancing. Yeah, any favourite bits of the ceremony itself?
I mean, I always like Bond representation, because who knows what's going to happen to Bond. Viewers, you may not know, but Reuben and I are both extreme super fans of the Eon Productions James Bond series. And it's just been sold to Amazon, so who knows whether we'll be getting the American James Bond or God knows what, too much James Bond. But yes, you know, I don't mind that tribute. I thought some of the singing was quite nice. You know, could have sang my favourite James Bond themes. But it's not all about me. No, it was fine. Oscars are always fine, but I'm glad that the independent film has been represented quite well here. And so, everyone, that is our Oscars special for Cinema Spotlight, and also a review of The Last Showgirl. Definitely check it out in your local cinema. And also our scathing review, especially my scathing review of Emilia Perez. Thank you so much for tuning in.
It's been absolutely lovely speaking to you, Jake, and absolutely to have the company of you, dear listener. I'm sure that we will see you next week, which I'm already looking forward to.
Next week, we'll be talking about Mickey 17, One of Them Days, Marching Powder, and the 25th anniversary of Erin Brockovich.
We do hope that you can join us then. We'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.